Hi, everybody. Welcome to City Girls Pod. And this is a show where we talk all things Sex in the City. And today we're finishing up our journey with young Carrie in the Carrie Diaries. And this has been such a fun little experiment that we've done watching the show.
I love doing this with you, Rachel. Thank you for thinking of the idea and putting it all together and chatting with me
Yeah,
every week.
it's been so much fun. I don't know. We had a lot of fun covering the OG series, but I've really enjoyed flaws and all. This show has a lot of flaws. We'll talk a little bit about why we think it only made it for 2 seasons, but it's been just a lot of fun. I think just being the longer format, more of a drama than a comedy. I think we've had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like you and I could really get in there and dissect things. And
Yeah,
the flaws are in some ways glaringly obvious, but it's such a watchable show because the acting is so amazing.
yeah. It really is a well acted show, well cast, and some interesting characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about the last two episodes of the series. And the episode 12 is called "This Is the Time," and it's Carrie, Mouse, Maggie, and Walt decide to go together to their senior prom at the Waldorf Astoria as a final hurrah. Larissa offers Carrie an opportunity that makes her rethink her plans for the next year. Mouse learns a secret about Donna LaDonna that could threaten her reign as Queen Bee. And meanwhile, Sebastian hides a big decision from Carrie. So overall, what do you think about this episode?
Yeah, this was a really fun one for me. Also because we know we're winding down. We know that much like last episode of our show was the penultimate episode of our show. This is the penultimate
Yeah.
series. And I think that we're getting to see some really interesting character development. I love where everything with Donna went, which was so surprising and unexpected and came to a
Mhm.
really fun conclusion. I thought they sort of balanced keeping all these balls in the air of so many different plot lines, but it was really fun, but also touching at the same time. What were you thinking watching this one?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a really strong fashion episode. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I thought it was really good, but it was interesting to me because I'm somebody. There's nobody who loved college more than me. I had a great experience. It was one of my most happy times of my life, and yet I have had quite a kind of 360 in my opinion about, like, if you'd asked me, well, even 10 years ago, what I thought about people going to college, or said absolutely you should go to college if you can afford it, if there's a way, go to college. And now I've like really turned a corner on that, where I'm like, I don't know if certainly everybody doesn't need to go to college, and if you can get like work experience, then I'd say go for it. Like, I am totally on Carrie's side with this. And it's just weird to me to think of her dad being like personally offended that she decides to take basically a gap year.
Well, yeah, the level of um like anger that he has and that he does feel like it is such a personal attack was a bit baffling. And Rachel, I feel similarly to you. I enjoyed my college experience. I really love my grad school experience, and I wouldn't give those up for anything. But at the same time, now I look at things and I think it is, in some ways, college doesn't answer, all of the problems that we thought it would with like employment
Yeah.
and like that. But it is a wonderful experience, but she can also have that experience working. And like you said, Rachel, like gap year, I don't know if that was even a thing, but she's open to going to college later. So it seems like a very reasonable
Yeah.
decision that she's making.
Yeah. And I mean, if I hadn't gone to college, I think my career would be almost exactly the same, as
Mhm.
far as, end up being self-employed. I worked for my father's company, for our family company, for a long time, and then I ended up being self-employed, and then I ended up doing everything I've learned as far as the technical side of my career has all been self-taught or
Mhm.
from a trainer of some kind. And aside from you're talking sort of more like ephemeral things like confidence and
Right.
learning how to, write better and just be a better studier and things like that. Yeah, I learned that in college, but I could have also, I think, learned that through the work experience. It's just changed so much that, I mean, eh, when my grandma was going to college, you didn't even have a major. You just either got a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts and and that's all you really needed to sort of differentiate yourself from a lot of the other people in the workforce, especially as a woman. And
Yeah.
now, like a bachelor's degree, I mean, it feels like it's hardly worth anything.
Yeah.
And then it's the additional, even, I mean, there are so many, not there's anything wrong with it, but there are so many grad students, MBAs, law students that are working at Target or Sam's Club or things like that, because we only need so many of these
Yeah.
business professionals. And so people getting this huge amount of debt for something that is just not as reliable as it used to be. And so, and not to go on like a diatribe or whatever, all I'm saying is that her dad's stance feels really, really strange now. And this was 2014. And I think even in the 9 years since
Mhm.
then, our attitudes towards college, at least mine, have radically changed.
Yeah, that's a really good point in how it's changed since 2014. And I'm curious, and I don't really know what the percentage of people going to college in 1986 when they actually graduated was.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So if they were trying to kind of show what it would have been like back then, and he is an educated, he's a lawyer, so that's going to be something that's important to him, is that Carrie gets an education. But the way that he took it as just like a personal insult was the part that was like strange to me. And I mean,
Yeah.
he's taken her off of any kind of assistance. He's not going to, help her. And it's not like she's backpacking across Europe or something. Like, she's got a job offer.
Yeah, and I thought it was really illuminating. Not that we all need to listen to Larissa because we see what happens with her, but when she's looking at all these resumes and she's saying, I have resumes of people from Columbia, NYU, and various other schools applying to this job that I'm offering you, it
Yeah.
does put it in perspective. But it did tug at my heartstrings a little bit when Carrie and Sebastian are eating Chinese and she's picturing this beautiful life that she has for herself at college and connecting with her roommates and her friends. And I think that, yeah, the interesting position in it is that career wise, I think that actually taking the job and interview was the best move,
Yeah.
but I think that it is interesting because it did seem like college, but it's an experience that she was yearning for. But I think also she just yearns for experiences in the city.
Yeah. Well, and I also don't believe that you would be fired just because your boss loses her job, eh, without any kind of cause, especially on your first day. Yeah.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
that's like, is that next episode? Yeah.
No. I think that's this. Wait, it is this episode, right? Wait,
Let's see. She takes the job.
I watched it like one big movie.
I know, me too. It's in the next episode. Yeah, this she gets fired. But anyway, and so they go at the beginning of the episode, they go shopping for prom dress. And I kind of liked the first dress that she
Yeah,
tried on
me
better
too.
than the final dress.
The hot pink one that she
Yes,
tried
with the
on.
green underlay, petticoat, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was really pretty and she looked really good in it. She looked good in the other one, but the other one was a little more messy, so just not as much my aesthetic. It was a pink, what do they call it, like mullet top kind of
Yes,
dress. I don't know what they
yes,
call that.
yeah.
With lots of swirly lines and then a polka dot overlay on top. And it was fine. I just liked the other one better.
Yeah, I mean, she looks great in anything, but I agree. I love that first dress. And that the beginning scene where she's talking about that she thought she would be shopping for prom dresses with her mom, that sort of gave me that pang of like, oh, Carrie has been through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and that's always hard on those big kind of moments when somebody's passed and you think about
Yes.
whether it's birthdays, holidays, things like that. It's always hard.
Yeah.
Now, Dorot's guy, I forget is it Scott? Scott, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Scott, he wants to go to prom, so he kind of tricks her
I
into
thought this.
going as an act of rebellion.
Yeah, an act of rebellion, except she looks adorable. She's
Yeah.
smiling at pictures. They're dancing. They're having a great time. I thought this was really cute.
Yeah, it's cute. He gets her like the most giant corsage known to man, which is really
Yeah.
funny. And I was surprised though. I felt like it was a missed opportunity to put her in like some kind of goth dress, like a black dress with maybe like a veil or just something that's like was a little bit weirder than
Yes,
just, she
yes,
was in
for
like a
sure.
pink dress, which
Yeah,
everybody was wearing pink to this
yeah, it was
prom.
interesting. I agree with you. Like, I know she was going for that whole like I'm gonna dress the part of like this big pink cupcake dress and like really do the thing. But I think it would
Yeah.
have been fun to see Dora in actually what she would have worn to
Yeah.
prom.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Yeah, so Larsa tells Carrie she doesn't want her to go to NYU, and so she's trying to, that's when she's like you said with all of the applications from all over and everything. And why did they fire Larissa again? What did they didn't like?
Okay, so I think what it was is that I could be wrong. In the big article write-up that she had in the New York Times style section, she didn't mention her boss at interview, I think. Which
Okay.
I understand being annoyed at it, but you wouldn't get fired for that.
Yeah,
You'd
that
be like,
seems-
oh, nice. Actually, it would be more, I think, passive aggressive, like nice write-up. Surprised that we
Yeah.
don't mention in here.
I would think the editor would be more likely to get fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that's what they do. So then also Maggie asked Walt to prom, which was cute.
Yeah, that was
And
really
just for friends. And he's kind of nervous because going to this Waldorf Astoria is close by where Bennett is, and so he feels like going to bring back a lot of things. And they take the limo to prom. Did you ever do any of this stuff for prom?
No. I mean, I my date one year got like a nice car and we like drove with the top down, but what we had found out 2 weeks before that was that we were actually like third cousins. Nothing was going on between us,
Right.
but there was a little flirtation, and then knowing we were cousins actually did feel like a little weird going in the prom.
That's funny.
So yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
not really related. Like you technically could get third cousins, isn't like, yeah.
totally. But I think it just that finding it out like set a weird tone for the evening.
Is third cousins so like your grandma's sister?
Yeah. And it was actually even like one step further than that.
Okay, yeah.
Like, so maybe it was even like fourth cousin. So it wasn't that close, but it was just enough that I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going to kiss him tonight.
That's funny. I mean, the closest I got, and I've told this before, was my homecoming date. Got to drive his mom's Volkswagen.
But that's
And he
nice though.
was
That's fun.
really excited. Yeah, very excited about that. And to homecoming, I didn't ever get to go to prom because I got my appendix out for prom.
That's like such a spectacular thing to happen right before prom. Like that's like a high school sitcom type of thing. We should have like a Hallmark prom where we all yeah,
Maybe we should do it in Kansas.
that would be super fun.
That would
That'd
be
be
really
super
fun.
fun.
Actually.
I would love
They-
that.
That would be fun. I got to get all dressed up last night, which was fun. For one of the local theaters there, Spotlight Gala. They have every year, and
Oh, I
so
love that.
that
What
was
did you
super
wear?
fun. I just got it from there's a site called Bloom Chic, and they have such great deals and such great clothes. And I actually got it for the HCA, film awards, and so it was literally like red carpet. Cost me $37.40.
Rachel, you need to do like a deal with that. Be like, okay, these are my like fancy dress deals.
Yeah. Well,
I
they're
love
not
that.
sponsored at all, but I'm telling you, Bloom Chic, great site. I don't know if they just do plus size or if they have all sizes. I'm not sure, but if you are plus size, they have everything from like formal wear to jeans and stuff like that. So they're just a great site and so affordable. So I highly
$37 for a gala dress.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
And
I
people
love
seem to like it, like both at the red carpet and at the gala. So and I don't think there were that many people who were like, ooh, that looked cheap or something like that. But I do like getting dressed up. It's fun.
Yeah, I think also I appreciate getting dressed up now more after COVID when
Yeah,
we
that's
kind
true.
of like, not doing
Just
anything.
going out in general. Like it took me like, it felt like a year before, like every time I would do something, I'd be like, I'm so happy to be back.
Rachel, the same. And honestly, like I always, much like you, I've always loved going to theater, but
Mhm.
now it still feels
Yeah.
extra painful every time.
True. It's true. It really does.
Yeah.
All right. So
Thank goodness
then
it's a podcast.
so then we find out Walt, like, he always wanted a traditional wedding at the hotel. It's also part of it. You cannot have and Carrie says you cannot have a wedding, but you can have authentic love. One thing I didn't love about Carrie's prom look, the dress was not my favorite, but it was fine. But I really didn't like her hair. It was very messy. And I know it's
Yes.
supposed to be like a beach look or something, but it wasn't for me. I didn't love it.
Carrie has such, I think the thing about, even Anna Sophia Robb in this show, like she has such gorgeous hair that they added a ton, like very, very long extensions.
Mm-hmm.
And she just has the best hair that like she could have just had it the way we see her have it on an average day and it would have looked better.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely going for like a tousled, unkempt kind of look, which I just didn't care for almost always when they pull her hair up. The way they've been doing it, I haven't liked. I guess I just love her curls. They're so pretty that I just think that would have been much prettier than this kind of weird bag lady look to her hair.
Yeah, when you think about the look that she had in the dressing room with the dress that we loved when her hair was down, like that was a perfect prom look, especially for the 80s. Yeah.
Oh no, we're talking about Walt.
Oh yeah, yeah. And him wanting to have a wedding at the Waldorf Astoria.
Yeah. So yeah, he wanted a traditional wedding at the hotel. And Carrie says you cannot have a wedding, but you can have authentic love.
Yeah, I thought this was a really lovely sentiment. And, I understand Walt's frustration when Carrie's talking about, oh, it's the same thing. Like my dad's disappointed in me and I don't know what I'm going to do. And he's like, no, this is very different. But when he snaps back at her with the thing about in 5 years, you'll be living in the suburbs with kids and it won't matter. I was like, ooh, okay. Like, and we all know that Carrie Bradshaw does not end up doing that.
True. But I was sensitive to that because sometimes amongst people in my faith, you'll hear people say, well, we have people that are heterosexual. In our faith, we believe in chastity before marriage. And so they can't have, we make them wait too. And as if that like the two are the same, like someone like myself waiting to meet somebody of the opposite sex
Mhm.
and somebody that's gay waiting, as if
Right.
that's the same. No, it's not the same.
Right.
And people
Right.
try to make it sound like it's the same.
Mhm.
But if you are heterosexual, you have hope that not only will you meet somebody, but when you meet somebody, they will be embraced by your community and everybody will be thrilled. And that's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Rachel. The fact that it's like there's a difference between, hope and no hope, and thinking that it's like it's not just what's happening right now, right? Like you're waiting, you're celibate. Like, yeah, I think that that's a really good point, that it's not the same thing at all, but people try and make it out to be like it is.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's just completely mentally in a completely different spot.
Yeah.
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 So Bennett shows up. Walt calls Bennett, and Bennett says getting fired was the best thing for him. And now he's working at the Gay Men's Health Crisis, which was a big deal in 1985 when this was. I mean, if you've seen the play The Normal Heart, it's all about the Gay Men's Health Crisis.
Yeah.
And I forget the guy's name, but the founder of it ended up getting basically kicked out, and then they wrote this play.
Yeah, it's a beautiful play. And I thought it was I saw the movie and I thought it was a really good depiction of the story too. And yeah, it's nice that Bennett, found a place to work that was actually more meaningful for him.
Yeah. Yeah. That would definitely be a very important place to work during that time.
Yeah.
So then we also have Weaver showing up, and he apologizes. He didn't end up writing the play about her. He says that he's just never been so hurt. And they have a pretty good little conversation, and then into the next episode.
Rachel. They picked two amazing love interests for Carrie Bradshaw.
Yeah, they did.
Like, this doesn't usually happen in a show. Usually you're very clearly one team or another. And still, like, I feel like the pull of Sebastian and everything, but my goodness gracious, two incredible actors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really good. And I guess that this guy, Chris Wood, who plays Weaver, he was evidently on Supergirl.
Yeah.
47 episodes. So that's interesting.
He is a stud.
Yeah. Also on the Vampire Diaries. First season, I think it says 19 episodes.
In addition, it's such a like I'm so excited.
It really is such a
It just like they're just these two actors are incredible, and actually the characters that are written, you can see why Carrie would be drawn to both of them. Like there's no simple choice there, and I thought the way they brought him back was great.
Yeah, like I would love to see a rom-com with Anna Sophia Robb and Chris Wood.
Yes,
How
please.
fun would that be? Like a little Netflix rom-com.
Yes.
Yeah,
Someone
it would be so
please
good.
give that to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Please.
Yes. So then we have this whole thing with Donna that she doesn't want the Mean Girls posse to surround her to know that she's smart, and then they overhear her calling them ding dongs, and then she wins prom queen. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think she was wearing pink as well. That must have been like the theme of the prom. And then her boyfriend says, "I don't care that you're smart," which is funny.
And he's like, "You've got the best rack, and that's all that matters." I laughed at that. Also, I laughed out loud hard when Bennett goes up to he's like, "Oh, this classy dame," or whatever. And Carrie's like, it's like he's in Guys and Dolls.
Yeah.
And it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think it's kind of funny that we live in a world. I do think it's kind of funny that we live in a world where Carrie Bradshaw was not prom queen.
I agree.
Doesn't it seem like she should have been?
It seems like she definitely would have been prom queen.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, especially, I do think Charlotte especially was prom queen. You know that she was prom queen.
Oh, 100% Charlotte was prom queen.
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
a doubt.
I don't think Miranda was. No.
No, I think Miranda was in Mouse's camp
Yeah, I agree.
of doing like a lot of hard work.
Yeah. And then Sebastian's waiting outside because he can't go in because he was expelled. He's in his tux, looking good.
With the rose. I'm just like, it's like, yeah, they know how to do it. Cause like I was when I saw Weaver there, I was like, oh, I want her to like have a little romance with him right now. But then when I see Sebastian outside, I'm like, look at him. Like they just know how to tug at your heartstrings.
Yeah. Well, and it's, we've said it a million times, but really it is surprising that Austin Butler didn't break out from this.
Oh, I
Because
know.
he's just, I mean, they literally slow down the frame rate every time he comes into the shot. It's like, whoa.
I feel like I'm sure when people see him in real life, it feels like they slow down.
Probably. I mean, did you see Elvis? Did you guys see it?
I
Oh,
still
it's really
haven't seen
good.
it. I need to see
Really
it.
good. Yeah. I think it's on one of the streamers. I think it's on HBO Max or something like that. You should check it. It's long, but
Oh,
it's
it is.
good. Yeah, it's good.
I mean, now that I'm an Austin Butler fan from Carrie Diaries.
Yeah. I was a little, I mean, not surprised that he didn't win, but I thought he had a good chance. And I guess partly because I hated The Whale. I thought it was absolutely terrible. Which is like Brendan Fraser. I was hoping for pulling for Austin Butler.
On Austin.
Yeah. So Carrie decides she's going to take the job. Sebastian wants to move to California. He gets this opportunity from a friend. You can move back. And then this is when her dad has this kind of fit, I guess. He says, I will not subsidize your life unless you're going to college. And I don't know. I just don't think that makes much sense. Especially if she could go like literally doing a gap years. I don't think she's like never going to go to college. It seems like at the very least they could make a deal with that.
Yeah, and like you said, she's going to have a job. She's not just like, oh, I want to, just hang out for a year.
Yeah.
And honestly, if she was just wanting to hang out for a year, like she's just been through like a trauma with her mom, and like there's lots there. Like give the girl some space.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have Walt telling his family he can't keep pretending to be someone else. He tells them he's gay. And his dad does end up accepting it, which was really sweet. And his dad gives him his Princeton ring or Yale or wherever, one of those places.
And he's like, you're my legacy, which I thought was really beautiful.
Yeah, it was really good. And then Sebastian's going to California, and Carrie comes to him and says, "Oh, you're all I have. If you were to move away, it would be a disaster."
Yeah. And he's like, cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, I loved a couple of their outfits I loved in this episode. There was one that was kind of a geometric print, this dress, long sleeves. I really thought that was a cool look. And then she had on a really cool coat, a purple coat with a big C pin on it. I thought that was really cool. That was very Carrie.
I loved that coat. It was so iconic, Carrie. And we're also seeing like the pink tights and the fun shoes and like really, really coming into her fashion sense.
Yeah. And she had a C necklace at one point too. So, which, was obviously very similar to the Carrie necklace that we see so important in Sex and the City, even in the finale.
I love that she has that. It's and very interesting little bits of foreshadowing throughout this.
Yeah.
He's Johnny.
And he's Darren.
Do you like movies?
Do you like your childhood?
Do you like movies from your childhood?
Do you like podcasts about movies from your childhood?
If you answered yes to one or all those questions, then you might enjoy NostalgiaCast. It's a podcast about movies from your childhood.
So if you're nostalgic for nostalgia, then you might like NostalgiaCast. See, that's the name of our podcast, NostalgiaCast.
Yeah, I think they got that.
Should we sign off?
Let's do it. I'm Johnny.
And he's Darren. And this is
NostalgiaCast. I win.
next episode, the series finale is called Run to You. And it's things go increasingly tense between Carrie and Tom. When Larissa drops an unexpected bomb on Carrie, Sebastian decides he too needs to come clean about something. Maggie turns to Walt when she thinks Pete is cheating on her, but gets the surprise of her life. Mouse and West find themselves in a sticky situation. Elsewhere, Samantha considers leaving the city, and Larissa's wedding to Harlan is out of this world. So what did you think about this one? Did you think it was a good series finale?
Yes. I feel like I wanted more with these characters. In some ways, when the episode started, because you and I, had been debating, do they know that it was the end?
Yeah.
And when I was watching in the beginning of the last episode, I couldn't tell if they knew where it was headed, but then I actually thought things wrapped up quite beautifully.
Yeah, I would say I think that they do wrap them up pretty well because it makes sense since this is kind of the end of the chapter with them graduating from high school and starting on new paths. And I could see how they could do more seasons, but my guess is that they did know,
Yeah.
or they had a strong suspicion, so they made it so it could work as a series finale, which I appreciate. And you did get kind of endings for all of the characters.
Yeah, we got endings for all the characters, and then we got like a new beginning for Carrie and Samantha and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it really fit with the spirit of the show.
I mean, there were some things that they kind of left hanging that they never really resolved. Like they never really did anything with the fact that the dad had pretended that kid was his kid.
Oh yeah.
I think that was going to be some big like reveal or something. They never really did anything more with that. That's the one that first comes to my mind, but I think there were other things that they kind of picked up and dropped.
Yeah, because I guess it was like, okay, we have a lot to fit in because we have a lot of characters.
Yeah. So it starts off with their graduation. And it turns out West and Mouse are co-valedictorians, and he's going to Princeton.
This was great. It was nice to see them sort of get back into their rivalry and then eventually, have a little bit of romance. And the fact that they both finished as valedictorian was chef's kiss.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, because I don't know, they were acting like, oh, you don't go to Harvard, like, oh, it's everything else is such a step down. Oh, he has to go to lowly Princeton.
Princeton. Oh, you poor thing.
And then we have Samantha and Elliot, the open marriage guy. And he's interesting. He's like, I crave you.
I'm a scientist, but I just can't. I don't know what's happening to me.
Yeah, and so
everywhere.
Yeah, and so she's not interested in him. She's even willing to come out to California with Sebastian and Carrie, and then he says that he's left his wife for her. And she's actually seems to be kind of excited about that because remember what we said many, many, many times is that Samantha is not a hippie. She's not just like free love. She actually is pretty choosy about who she chooses to be with.
Yeah. And I think she really has deep feelings for this guy or thinks that she could and is not wanting his wife to be in the picture. And apparently he isn't either.
Yeah, evidently. Okay, so then we have Larissa getting fired, as we talked about, and then Carrie gets fired along with Larissa, which again is probably ridiculous, but it's it creates drama.
Yeah,
it creates drama.
And when Carrie's upset and she's like, wants to go and start drinking the day away, I love that Sebastian's like, it's 3 p.m. And it's this thing of like, if Sebastian was in a different place in his life, like he didn't have this other career to live for, I could see both of them being like kind of a bad influence on each other. But he's there to sort of like bring her back to reality.
Yeah. And so, but she's moved out of the house, and luckily they just happen to have this giant apartment ready. That's a convenient.
Sure is.
I wish I had my New York City sublet ready to go at all times.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
Oh, and so then Maggie's super excited about Pete, and she sees him, and she finds a girl's number in his pocket, and so she thinks that he might be cheating on her. And I would think that if he's getting jewelry, which we find out at the end he is, that you would have like a business card or something. I guess he's buying it like off the market or
Yeah.
something.
Well, what he said was that the guy in his bunk is dating Jess, and that's why he just scrawled her number on that.
Oh, okay.
That
So I was
made
like,
a
why wouldn't
little,
he have like a business card?
right. That made a little more sense.
Okay.
Shout out to Pete, played by Claiborne Elder, who's a big Broadway guy. He's a BYU grad, Rachel.
Ah, no way.
He's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized him, so I looked him up, and he's done a bunch of Broadway stuff and is a BYU guy.
Ah, look at this. Claiborne Elder. Ah,
And
cool. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, he was in the Gilded Age like everyone else on Broadway.
exactly.
That was
Yeah.
such a boring show.
They're like,
wanted to
put everyone
it
from Broadway in it.
I wanted to like it so much, and because I love period dramas, and it had so many people I love, and I was just like, oh.
You're like, it has all the right ingredients, except this just doesn't
Woo.
work.
Yeah, no, thank you. But she loses her chance to go to NYU because of this job thing, and I don't think that that's also real. I think that it would take a longer time if you've gotten fully accepted, and because it seemed like it had only been like a week or something.
Yeah, and they said she missed it by like 3 days, but I also wonder, it's like, if you're going to NYU and you tell them the reason you're declining and then the job falls through, like, I think there's a little bit more
Yeah,
leeway.
I think so too.
There
I think you could appeal it. I really do. But again, creates drama. It's fine.
Right. Go with it.
So Sebastian tells Carrie that he wants to move to Malibu. At first, she's kind of on board. And like I said, Samantha's even thinking about doing it. And Larissa tells Dad about the whole thing, that she got fired and that Carrie got fired. So then then he confronts Carrie, and this is now it's not as important to go to college. You have to get this sorted out, and so they kind of start to make up, which was nice.
Yeah.
And then we have Larissa. She dives into planning her wedding. And it was interesting because the last thing that we saw from Harlan and Larissa was that they were going to be living on the same floor, but they were kind of like nervous about their commitment. It was a little bit shaky. But in this episode, they're fully in love, fully dedicated to each other. There's none of that left.
Yeah. And I think that Larissa needs a distraction after losing her job. So she's like, I'm going to throw myself into this.
Yeah. So she plans the wedding at the airport. And I mean, as somebody, you're an engaged person, so you probably thought kind of what you want and what you're thinking of. What do you think of this wedding?
I mean, I'm really bad at planning stuff, so I haven't thought about it. But I thought this wedding was really fun. It felt very iconic. It felt unique. I thought that it was very fitting for a fabulous New York couple. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. It had style, was something different, but it wasn't like too much. I don't know. It felt like something, okay, you could do this in a month.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Especially with putting all their resources on it.
So then Carrie goes and talks to Weaver, and they had a nice conversation. She says, "You'll always be my first," and that was very sweet. And that was good. They are good. They really do have good chemistry, the two of them.
Really do. And they sort of like leave enough of the door open there. You're like, okay.
Yeah. So they get more and more confused about this girl, Pete's girl, because she hangs up on them. So they think, oh no. And then we get this scene a little bit later where they're doing laundry, and she says she saw the name, and so she's very upset. And then he proposes. which was super cute. And he's like, yeah, I feel like when you know, you know. And I totally agree.
And I feel like for Mouse and Pete, this makes sense with what they
You mean
want.
Maggie and Maggie.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, good Lord. Can you imagine if Mouse and Pete got together? That would be a plot twist. Yes, for Maggie and Pete, this makes sense with what they want in their lives. Like, you know, I think that for Mouse and West, or we have for you know, Carrie and Sebastian, they want different things right now, but I think Maggie does really want this family, and he does too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think sometimes when you know, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, my cousin, she met her husband in like March of 2006, I think it was. And they got married in June of that year. And
Wow.
they're still going strong.
Still going strong.
Sometimes you know, you know.
And I did like the way he was like, that's why I was being weird about when you were talking about the future, because I was hoping that we'd be living in our own place on base. Like all of
Yeah,
it
that
did
makes
connect
sense.
then. Yeah.
Yeah, and if they probably couldn't have a long engagement because of the army factor, but I probably would say for this couple it might be smart.
Yeah.
Just because she is so young. She's only 18,
She's so young.
which there are advantages though to marrying young. I mean, people poo-poo it, but you're not as set in your ways. You're more malleable. You're more willing to learn and grow together, hopefully. And I mean, in some ways, I think it would be harder me at 42 to get married now than it would be if I had gotten married at 18, 19, something like that, because I've lived alone for so long. I'm so set in my ways. So
Yeah.
there's advantages to every age.
And I do think that Maggie, because of even having that mentality of when she was pregnant, thinking, oh, I might want to like raise this baby and have a family and you know, be with Simon, which would have been an ever-loving disaster, let me be clear, as we all know. But I think that she has thought about it. And I think that for her, I think you're right. I think it actually could work. I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. And I think that he really will kind of take care of her. And sometimes that can be like sort of looked at as a bad thing if it's too overwhelming. But I think for her, I think that's something she kind of needs.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something she needs. I think it's something she's always wanted. So I think that it was really, really sweet.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
And so then we also have Mouse and West. They get this encyclopedia because they're co-valedictorians. And they're like, you divide it up however you want. And that was really funny. It's like, there's nothing good that ever comes out of the X.
They're there on the floor, and when the janitor passes, and they're like, you know, what you're supposed to offer, and he's like, doesn't look like it or whatever. And then that's a really funny comedic moment. And when they realized that neither one of them wants the encyclopedias, I was thinking that. I was like, why would you want to take all those to school with you? They're so heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just don't have space in your dorm room.
No.
For that. Like you don't usually have a lot of bookshelves and stuff like that in a dorm room. So, but it was really funny. Yeah. And then Carrie says, I belong in this city. It is my home. I have to stay here and fight for my life. And so then Carrie and Sebastian break up, which was very sad.
Oh, this scene where Sebastian is holding her head in his hands and she's crying and she's giving a beautiful performance. And he's like, oh, when I see your name on a byline, I was like, Oh my goodness. Like they were giving that performance. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
it was
Like,
good. It was really
and
good. So,
Dale's very iconic to like
yeah.
Carrie, and equally it had a little bit of Carrie and big energy of like, he turns around and it's like this, it's a perfect parting.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get a feeling like these two will kind of always be in each other's lives and checking up on each other and stuff. Of course, we don't see that later on, but you can imagine an alternate reality.
Yeah, that's the reality that I want to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Man, wouldn't it be great if Austin Butler came back for, I mean, I guess how could he though? Because he would be way older if Sebastian came
I was also having these thoughts and
friend just like
figure out
that.
I was like, how can we get Anna Sophia Robb and Austin Butler in
You
it?
know who? Well, he was already on the show, but just for one episode, who would be a great Sebastian is Matthew McConaughey.
He would be amazing.
Yeah, and they have a friendship. I mean, well, they did a movie together, so
Yeah, that would be
SJP.
amazing.
That would be
Oh, I
so
would love
good.
it.
Yeah.
I love
You
it.
know, well, it would be an interesting what if one of the other girls met Sebastian, didn't realize he was connected with
Yes.
Carrie, he wouldn't realize it either, and then they that would be a great little plot line.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that.
It would be so good.
I just love Sebastian.
You're welcome, HBO writers.
Yes. Call me Rachel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they would just have to pretend like his other part was something else. It would be fine.
That's okay. That it can just we'll forget about it.
But let's see here. And then I think we covered almost everything. Samantha moves in with her. She ends up going back to the loft because Harlan has this talk with Dad, and it's like you need to let Carrie grow up, have some growing pains, and you need to be there for her. And then he tells her, "I'll always worry about you because you'll always be my kid." That was cute. It was sweet.
It was really, really sweet. And I thought that was another thing of like realizing that Carrie is committed to her life in New York and to her craft, and that she's going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing with Carrie and her dad because that I can't really relate to because my family, when I was going away to college, my mom was pregnant and with my sister, and I was just like over it. I was done with the family. I was ready to
like, I'm
move on. Yeah. And I remember when I turned 18, my dad read a Declaration of Independence on those. He's like, hear ye.
That's cute.
There was no human being more ready for college. Maybe that's part of the reason why I loved it so much, but I was just ready.
Prime.
I was ready to be done with babies. I was ready to be done with little kids that are driving me crazy.
Like, just get me with only people my own age. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what about you? Were you homesick? Or were you ready to go out to college?
I was only like 45 minutes away from my hometown.
Okay, pretty
so I saw
close.
my family a lot, but I was not homesick. Like I my family, but I was like, same thing as you. I feel like I was like, oh, I'm finally with other theater kids.
Yeah.
I'm living my life,
Yeah. I remember when my sister, who is 8 years younger than me, when she was at college and she was like telling me she was a little homesick because the family's California at that time. She was out here in Utah. And I was like, yeah, I'm told that many people I can't relate to it myself, but I'm told that's a very common experience.
Like, I can't even offer like, oh, I've been there because you're like, not me.
The only time I ever really got homesick was when I was on my mission, because that was hard because at the time, now you can call, like, you don't have as many limitations on calls and stuff, and you can social media and all kinds of stuff. It's just different than it is. It was different back then. You were really isolated and you could only make 2 phone calls a year home. That was hard. It was really hard.
That is almost unfathomable to me.
I mean, it was so expensive. It was just more expensive. Even in 2003 to 2005, when I was on my mission, like long distance calls were still pricey, and where now it's like basically have unlimited calling on almost all plans. So I would
What
have,
policy
I,
missions?
what's that?
What? Oh, sorry. You can finish what you were saying. I was just curious what the policy now with communication during missions is.
I think that it's unlimited. I think people can call home. They can use social media. They can email. We could only even email once a week. It was really, it was hard. It was hard. And you think because you're with someone 24/7, you wouldn't feel lonely, but like that person isn't someone you picked. It's someone who was picked for you. And it can be tough. It can be really tough. And I used to think, oh, it'd be easier to live with girls than to live with boys. Not accurate at all.
Yeah, and you're with someone, like, you can still be lonely even when there's a lot of people around. And I think it
Yeah.
would be hard to be with someone all the time that you have
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I used to go into the like bathroom just to have some just
100%.
yourself. Oh, it was tough. It was, I mean, not that we want to go on and on for that, but it was a great experience. And then we did tons of community service and helped people, a lot of people, but it was tough. It was a hard thing. But I did it. And once I finished, almost 2 years, I can look back and be like, wow, I did something really hard.
Yeah, and really incredible to finish it. And especially at a time being so young and being like not being able to have that consistency of just connecting with your family, friends from home.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It was very intense experience. That's what people ask me about serving a mission. I just say, get ready for an intense, the highs are super intense. The struggles are intense. The lows are intense. It's just intense. But anyway, so
your missions before college or after?
well, for me, most people, it's like kind of in the middle or before, like, because guys can go now at 18. When I was going, it was 19, and then the girls, it was 21, and now it's 18 and 19, I think, for guys, girls. Yeah. But for me, I finished college. So no, but most of them haven't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Samantha ends up moving in with her, becoming her roommate in the loft. And we see her, she's working as a waitress. And we have Walt and Bennett getting back together. So that's nice. And so we have kind of nice, soft places to land for all of our characters.
That's a great way to put it, Rachel. And I think seeing Carrie, serving everyone, and like, I even like that Donna's there. Like there's this friend group that she's chosen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, okay, Carrie Bradshaw is going to be okay.
Yeah. And Donna is going to Columbia. I forgot to say that.
She's so smart.
Yeah.
I love that.
So there we go. It's the show. This episode is actually directed by Andrew McCarthy, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
He's charming.
So I guess let's just talk for a second of why we think why do we think the show worked and didn't work? What would you say is your big reason why you think it worked and didn't work?
I think we've alluded to it a little bit before, but I think it was very hard for this show to find its audience. And I think that the audience that watched it probably didn't appreciate it for all that it is. Like, I'm trying to think now, like, who should this have been marketed to and where should it have been?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the main problem, is because it doesn't really appeal to Sex and the City fans, because it's this high school show and it's just not as raunchy or as edgy or as funny, all those things that are part of Sex and the City. And yet it doesn't really appeal to teenage audiences, I think, that much, because it has all these adult relationships with these teenagers. It's it's a drama, and all the Easter eggs for Sex and the City wouldn't mean anything to them. So yeah, it is kind of, I think that's the main problem, is that it's kind of adrift as far as who is it for? What was the tone supposed to be? What were they trying to do? Why were they making a comedy into a 1 hour drama, 44-minute drama? for teens. I know it just doesn't quite work.
I read an article that said, talked about, the ratings being low, and also that Sarah Jessica Parker said that it was odd having someone else play Carrie Bradshaw.
Yeah, that's true. That's also part of it, probably.
Yeah, and it was interesting because apparently she was really nice to Anna Sophia Robb, and like, there wasn't any like bad blood, but she said that felt odd to her.
Yeah, and I don't think that they really nailed Carrie as much as I think Anna Sophia Robb did a good job. It never really felt like Carrie Bradshaw to me, or very
Right.
rarely. And then they had Samantha, which was a little bit more successful, but still not quite there, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think that's really tricky to do because like I can't like this Carrie, like I know people, of course, they grow up and they change and they have life experiences, but Anna Sophia Robb's Carrie felt a lot kinder, actually.
Yeah.
And I know that life can like change you, but I don't know. There was something, I mean, this sounds weird, but like it just felt like she was a better person.
Yeah, more heartfelt,
Yeah.
sweeter than Carrie. Um, yeah, I can see that. I can almost see her turning more into Charlotte than into Carrie.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point because I do think she's got more of the heart that,
Yeah. I also we just talk about some good fashion on episode 12, but they did a pretty good job of sort of morphing 2014 with 1984 and making this combination, but it definitely was not as iconic fashion wise as Sex and the City or just all the ways that Sex and the City used New York to tell their stories. You couldn't do that because it was in 1984 and there weren't, that many places like you'd have the Waldorf Astoria and places like that you could do, but a lot of those places, again, I guess they had serendipity and stuff, but they had a harder time kind of working New York into the story, I think.
yeah, that's a really good point. I think it obviously helped when Carrie got the job in the city, but it's not as integral as the sex, as Sex City. I did like at the end, I love White Horse Tavern, and you see that she's working at like the place right next to that, and it pans to like, basically what will be, grown up Carrie Bradshaw's hood. So that was exciting and fun. But yeah, they can't use the city as effectively with all the iconic spots that we see in Sex and the City.
Well, and I guess another flaw I think in the show is they didn't really treat almost any of the characters like actual teenagers. I mean, they all had adult relationships. They all had adult problems. And I mean, especially Carrie with this whole job. And at one point she's living in the city by herself. Like there just wasn't that much that felt like, okay, these are the problems of an everyday teen. So you're not going to win over the non-Sex in the City fans that are just looking for a fun teen show. But all that said, I do think that the characters were strong. And I think that particularly, I think the strongest part of the show was the kind of relationship between Carrie and Walt. I think is probably the strongest part of the show. And I think the best episode, if we're going to do a top 10, is when he basically comes out to her and she says that if this is you and I know you are good, then this is good, is basically what she says. And that was such a beautiful moment, so well written, so well done, so well acted. And I think his sort of plot thread felt, I think, the most authentic and genuine, and was probably, I think, the best part of the show.
Yeah, and handled so delicately and beautifully, taking into consideration the time that it was and the subject matter. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really well done. And we also see like the foundation of Carrie establishing like how she moves through the world as a friend. Like I thought that was a really even more exciting than watching her, develop like what it's going to be like for romantic relationships. We see how important friendship is to her and how important the city is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What would you say were like other strengths to the show?
I think that this show did a really good job of taking a lot of characters and actually making them really specific and interesting. I thought that, Sex and the City wasn't a particularly diverse show. And I thought that this show was at least more diverse than
That's
Sex
true.
and the City, which was nice to see, but it didn't feel like anything was like tokenized. It felt
Right.
like these very lived in characters with, fun personalities and stuff, not just like they were checking a box or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did really enjoy Anna Robin, Austin Butler. I thought they were great, had great chemistry. It was just fun to see them get kind of, I know that they've both been working before that, but to see such a beginnings of their career was really fun.
Yeah, they have movie star energy.
Yeah.
Like, in addition to being incredible actors, you're like, oh, they're like old school movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, yes, of course, they're, painfully good looking, but they're also just really, really talented actors with a great range of emotional depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very true. Well, it's been a joy as always.
Well, we'll be doing lots more things.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh,
you
yeah.
worry.
Yeah. So we're gonna take it. We'll take a couple weeks off just to regroup and everything, and then I think we should start covering the next Candice Bushnell series, Lipstick Jungle, which
Lipstick
is
Jungle.
very spicy.
I can't wait to see us do this. I haven't watched any of the episodes. Have you?
I have. I watched it.
Oh, you've watched it? Oh, this will be fun then. It'll be
It's
different.
so good. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. It's really good.
Oh my gosh. I'm
So that will be fun. And so yeah, let us know what you think if you're listening and you watched this last 2 episodes of Carrie Diaries. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter at City Girls Pod. And Jax, where can people find you?
At Jacqueline C Tweets on Twitter and Jacqueline Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we also have our patron group and merch store. You get City Girls Pod merch, so check that out. And thanks so much. It's been a joy to do this, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.